morning, everyone. Everyone ready? Thank you. No, it's okay. It's okay. We have time. We have time. Ready? Everyone good? So last Friday, I went up with a delegation, including staff from the county, our city commissioner, Alex Diaz de la Portilla, myself, and met with the president of the Boring Company, Steve Davis, to discuss an intercity transit system. It became very evident to me after going in the tunnels of Las Vegas that the system that would work the best for the city of Miami is one that's significantly greater than what I originally had envisioned. What we will be working on is something that could potentially connect Brickell to downtown, to the Grand Central Station, to Miami World Center, to the Omni area, to Edgewater, potentially to Wynwood, Midtown, and all the way north to Zion District, and all the way north to Little Haiti. We are considering and will consider in discussions with the city commission and with the city manager how the system will be procured, including the possibility of piggybacking off of Las Vegas's procurement. Things to note, and that are constant questions that I get, and that I have gotten on social media or from the press. Fact number one, the Las Vegas tunnel is built underwater. Let me just repeat that. The Las Vegas tunnel is actually built underwater. The water table in Las Vegas is at 18 feet, and the tunnels are below the beginning of the water table. So they are already built underwater. Fact number two, the subsoil of Las Vegas has a substance that is 5 times denser than the limestone that we have here. So it's actually a lot harder to actually penetrate than the limestone is here. Fact number three, the throughput of a max throughput of some of these technologies, and this boring technology is significantly greater than the throughput from the Metro Rail, which has about a capacity of about 50,000 people per day. The throughput for the maximum throughput would be potentially as high as 60,000 people per hour. So it's significantly greater in throughput. Why is it so much cheaper? Which is an obvious question. Several reasons. The first is the scale. The tunnels that are bored, for example, the port tunnel is 4 times greater in size. It's a 40-foot diameter tunnel. This is about a 12-foot diameter tunnel. So you're talking about a 1/4 savings in terms of size. The boring machine itself is significantly less expensive for obvious reasons because of the size. The paneling that goes on the actual walls of the tunnels is interesting. When the boring company started looking at how to create the kinds of efficiencies that it would be needed to be able to bore at the level that it wanted to bore, it realized that there were 3 companies that made the boring panels, and they were all mysteriously charging $10 million a mile. When they did the math on the actual material cost, it came out to about $900,000. So they realized that the company was basically making about $9 million of profit in each section of paneling. And so what they basically did was they vertically integrated. And so they're doing it not quite as efficiently as those 3 companies that have been doing it for a long time, but they're doing it for about $1.2 million per mile. So they're saving still about 90% of what is being saved. So just the scale of it, the size of it, all of that creates tremendous savings. And in their Las Vegas project, which is about a mile, which we actually toured and toured the 3 stations, they built it in about a year. So that's the objective. The objective is to have a north-south system. We obviously want to work with Miami-Dade County. That sent a representative, Alberto Parhus, who's an engineer, up there as well. And I don't want to speak for him, but I think a lot of his technical questions were answered, and they were kind of wowed by the technology and by the idea. Let me just say it in Spanish. El viernes pasado estuve en Las Vegas, conjunto con miembros del condado y de la comisión de Miami, observando el túnel en Las Vegas de la compañía de boring de Elon Musk. es evidente para mí que este sistema es mucho más amplio y tiene mucho más capacidad que yo pensé desde el principio. Así que mi idea es, conjunto con la Comisión de Miami y el administrador, avanzar un proyecto que conectaría todo el sur con el norte de la ciudad de Miami. Esto sería un sistema que lo pagaría, si Dios quiere, la compañía con sus fondos, financiándolo y utilizando un modelo en cual los utilizadores de sistemas pagarían una nómina para usarlo. La razón por cual ahorra tanto dinero son varios. Primero, el tamaño de la máquina que construye los túneles es una fracción del tamaño de lo normal. Por ejemplo, en el túnel de la bahía del puerto es 4 veces más grande en tamaño. Segundo, el costo de lo que son los bordes de las paredes son básicamente 90% más baratos. Y la razón por cuál es porque cuando la compañía hizo sus investigaciones, determinaron que eran 3 compañías que estaban fabricando esto y lo estaban fabricando al precio idéntico de $10 millones por milla. Y ellos analizaron los materiales y determinaron que se puede construir mucho más barato, inclusive que estaban haciendo una ganancia enorme de los materiales. Así que cuando se integraron verticalmente en sus procedimientos, pudieron construir esos paneles por $1.2 millones, un ahorro de 90%. También hay muchas personas que han hablado del hecho de que hay la tabla de agua, y quiero anunciar al público que estos túneles en Las Vegas están construidos por abajo del agua, porque la tabla de agua empieza a 18 pies en Las Vegas y esos túneles están por abajo de la tabla de agua, donde empieza la tabla de agua. Cuarto, los materiales de lo que es subterráneo de Las Vegas son mucho más duros, así que mucho más fuerte para romper que los de aquí en Miami. De un punto en ingeniería, eso significa que es más fácil y más factible hacerlo aquí. Así que esto va a ser un proyecto con el cual yo voy a trabajar con la Comisión de Miami, con el administrador, con la compañía, para ver cómo podemos procurar esta tecnología para empezar el proceso de ayudar a las personas que quieren transitar nuestra ciudad eficientemente y de una forma barata. Questions? Let me say something in English that I didn't say, and I think Rob will want to say this. My goal is to do a procurement that's similar to what happened in Las Vegas, maybe even piggyback off Las Vegas. And in Las Vegas, they financed it and they had a guaranteed maximum price. So the idea would be potentially for them to finance it as well. And it would be a consumer model where the customer would actually pay $5, $10. I think in Las Vegas, in the 43-mile loop, they have to pay, depending on the stop, $5 or $10 to get from one place to the other. Obviously, I think this is a system that could work countywide. I would encourage the county mayor, as you know, I think Alberto Parhuso was there on their behalf, saw and was wowed by the technology. I think it would be great technology to do the Miami to Miami Beach section as well, because it's underground and it solves a lot of the problems that system will inevitably create, and it's cheaper. So the throughput is significant, significantly higher. And in the Las Vegas tunnel, I think the throughput right now that they have engineered is about 8,000 per hour, which still would get you significantly more than the Metro Rail does. But it can actually be engineered up to 60,000 per hour, which is incredible, depending on the number of cars. The timetable is, look, we have to start the process of having the conversation locally with our elected officials. We have to decide whether we will procure it independently or as a piggyback, which is, you know, if it's a piggyback, it shortens the time tremendously. I could shorten a procurement from 3 to 6 months to as little as a month to 2 months. And then they actually built it in a year from the minute they got the permits. So, you know, and that's a 1 mile section. What we're talking about now in connecting the city is significantly larger than that. So that would take more time.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed this, but you know, if you had your way, so what would be the total distance, mileage? How long would that go? And then what do you, on the cheap end, what do you think this would cost?
Well, they're sticking to their approximate $10 million a mile cost estimate, with stations costing a little bit more depending on what kind of a station we get, right? One of the interesting things about it is right-of-way acquisition, right? Which is very similar to, not identical, but similar to how you do it in New York, where you're basically walking on the sidewalk and you can just sort of go down, and there's a station underground, as you can see from the images in my social media. You get in a car and you go in the tunnel. So the distance we're talking about is from Brickell all the way north to the northern edge of the city, which I'm just guesstimating is somewhere between 8 miles, somewhere in that vicinity, because it's 80 blocks, and I'm guesstimating a mile every 10 blocks.
And I guess I just covered the last we just did at the county, the $250 million bus rapid
Yeah.
transit program for like $250
Yeah.
million.
Yep.
For somebody who sees that and somebody who sees this and goes, that doesn't compute. Why is this only, theoretically $80 million?
Well, that's a different distance. First of all, you're talking about. I think the southern corridor is, I think, 20 miles. So it would be, you have to do the math on that. So it would probably be we guesstimated that it was probably the equivalent of bus rapid transit. Why does bus rapid transit cost so much? I don't know. What they've been able to do and prove, and this would be, by the way, this would probably be their second project. So I want to be clear. Their first project was in Las Vegas. This would be their second to market project, which is part of the attraction, I think, for them with us. Right, and I think that's what we're trying to persuade them on, which is, look, assuming I'm reelected in November, I'm going to be the president of U.S. Conference of Mayors. If this is something that works in Miami, this can be scaled nationally. So that was very attractive to them as a possible sort of a marketing, if you will, which is why I'm hoping that we're able to stick with the Las Vegas model as opposed to doing something different, because the Las Vegas model was attractive on multiple fronts. One, there was a guaranteed maximum price, so you knew this is how much it was going to cost. If it went over, they took the loss on it. Number two, it was they financed it. So I think that is a big deal. It's a lot harder if I have to go out now and convince the public to spend a couple $100 million. If it's a user fee model where whoever wants to use it pays it, and whoever doesn't want to use it doesn't use it, it's much easier to convince the public of that.
What, Mr. Mayor, I know
I'll go back to you.
I know it's premature, but has any renderings been made that you have seen?
No renderings. What I've seen is what I saw, which was the actual tunnels in Las Vegas. So, I mean, that to me is a way more powerful than a rendering. To actually be in the cars, to be in the stations, to see it in effect, I think is wonderful. And I think the other piece of this that's attractive for me is, and in the southern corridor is a great point, and even in the beach corridor would be great, is you get back all that upland, right? So let's assume in the BRT example that it costs the same. You get all that upland back. So you can do a bike path, you can do a running path, you can extend the underline for 20 miles. Imagine extending the underline for 20 miles. In the beach, it's going to be crazy to convince people that anything overground, whether it's a monorail or Metro Rail or Metro Mover, you have people that live along that corridor whose view is going to be blocked. So I think that's something that could be potentially usable for that corridor.
Just to take a step back.
Yeah.
What are these tunnels? Are they for cars that I own?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, let me explain that, because I was a little confused about that myself. I originally thought they were for cars that were either, standard cars you could just drive off, and I think that's why my original proposal was to do it underneath the Brickell Bridge. And what I realized is it's not that. It's really much more comprehensive. It's sort of like a monorail system, but it's underground, right? In the sense that instead of it being a monorail, you have a 4-passenger, 5-passenger car, which is basically a Tesla, right? And you're being driven by a person. Eventually, when they have autonomous licensing, it will be autonomous. But for now, it's driven by a person. And it can be driven, depending on the straightaways, from anywhere from 30, 40 miles an hour to up to 70, 80, 90 miles an hour in the tunnel. So you're basically driving in a paved tunnel with a driver in a car. And what's good about that is it also allows you to break off, and it creates a lot of efficiencies, because the problem with a big you have to stop all the time when you're in a big in a big vehicle, because somebody has to get off. When you're in a small vehicle, you don't necessarily have to get off until whatever station that you're on. So it creates a lot more efficiency, and people can get through a lot faster.
So basically, these are for pedestrians. It's not like if I'm taking my car in from the west side.
It's a mass transit. It's a mass transit system. So if you're in the west side, and for example, let's say we connected FIU to downtown, right? You could do that as a one-stop or as a multi-stop connection, right? If you're an FIU student or if you're a downtown resident going to FIU, you can get in and go.
So it's instead of your car.
Correct. Instead of the car. Absolutely.
And what about, you mentioned like the north-south route. What about an east-west route?
I think it's perfectly usable for an east-west route. I think north-south has right now the most density, so I think that's what's most logical. I think they would a balk at doing something east-west right now in terms of just in the city. If you did it east-west in the county, certainly it would be, in my opinion, a very good idea, and I think something that the county should explore. And as a TPO member, which means I have sort of regional responsibility, it's something that I would absolutely support. And I'm appreciative that the county mayor sent, basically her top employee up there, and she has mentioned in the past that she wants to talk about it. So I'm hopeful that she's continues to be open-minded about this as a possible solution. I think it would be wonderful for her and for her administration to explore this in detail.
Why is this such a priority for your administration?
We're growing tremendously, Rob. Everything that you see indicates that the growth is going to continue. And one of the biggest concerns that people share with me is infrastructure. What are we doing to make sure that our infrastructure keeps pace with this growth? So for me, things like transportation, which I've always been an advocate of since I started, 11 years ago in public service, it all started with a tweet, right? So, I mean, you know that. You saw the tweet. And it began with a tweet. I like to, follow through and follow up on opportunities. I don't like to let opportunities go, as you can tell by my advocacy on Twitter. And this opportunity was available. I thought it was a good idea for us to look at it. And now after seeing it, I even think it's a better idea to do something more comprehensive. I'll go back to you. Phil.
What do you say to the, there are critics out there, obviously, who point.
There's always critics out there.
You're on the ballot, You're on the ballot. You've raised a lot of money
Sure.
from tech folks for your campaign.
Yeah.
For somebody who says this isn't real,
Yeah.
this is just for show,
Sure.
to raise money for politics, what do you say to those folks?
Well, I would say, first of all, there's always critics in everything that you do. You can never dream and do big things if you follow or listen to the critics constantly. Second thing I would tell them is get on a plane, go to Las Vegas, and check it out for yourself. It's there. It's real. And, the conversations are real. The fact that Elon Musk reached out to me and I spoke to him is real. I've never really been focused on campaigns right now, thankfully, and maybe I will in the future. I don't have an opponent, so I'm not really worried about my campaign. I'm worried about governing and creating the premium quality of life for my residents. I always say that there's three simple rules that we need to follow in our city to be successful. Keep taxes low, keep crime low by investing in our police officers, and increase our quality of life. That's why we invested so much in the underline. I'm not just going to stop governing from now to November and start campaigning and just say, well, I'm not going to have any ideas, any initiatives because somebody might criticize them. That's just not who I am.
And then, what do you think the timeline is? The first major hurdle would be to get the commission to sign off on.
Of course.
What would be a timeline for having something on paper to say, to give to Carollo, Reyes, and
Yeah.
here's the plan?
I'm very sensitive to their opinions. Obviously, at the end of the day, they would have to approve it, so I have to be. And in fact, if they want to go up there, I think that's something that they're welcome to do. I just happened to go up with Commissioner Diaz-La Portilla because he asked me. When he saw the news reports, he's the first one that approached me. Obviously, going with more than one commissioner is complicated because of the sunshine. And we also want to be respectful of them. They're a private company. For example, I was in their fire rooms. I was in their computer rooms. They asked us not to show pictures of that. And that they have a right to do that.
But timeline, you think,
Oh.
best case scenario, you could give them a proposal?
Look, I think I want to make sure they're comfortable. If they want to go up there, that I want to give them that opportunity. If that's something that they want to see. We have to look at potentially some technical help as well, and then we have to decide whether we do an open procurement, which takes longer, or maybe piggyback off Las Vegas. And make sure that the company is okay with doing that model, because you can piggyback off something, but if they don't want to do it, it's useless. So,
That's like weeks to months and not, years.
well, certainly the construction will take years just based on the current pace that they go now. What's interesting about the machines is they actually drill slower than a snail. That's the actual speed. And so Elon Musk is always chiding the CEO, Steve Davis, was telling us that he's kind of pretend walk, and he's like, you can't go faster than this, So that's part of it. It takes a while, but in terms of procurement, look, once it's procured, it's just a permitting issue, and once it's permitted, they can build. So I don't like putting timelines, because then what happens is somebody comes back and says, oh, you said it was going to be a month. It's really been 3 months. If you say it's going to be, so that whole thing. But I'm going to work fast on it, and if there's any impediments, we'll deal with them. Well, I'll tell you this. It's not so much about renderings, but we do need a conceptual, because we need to decide where the stops are going to be, right? That's important. And then there is an above ground component, which is right of way. right? So for example, let's say there was a stop here, we'd have to put a hole in the ground here, and we'd go down the stairs and then go. So and this is obviously public property, but some of it is private property, some of it may be public property. That could also create some obstacles. They had to go in Las Vegas under a few buildings, and they got right of ways. They also got they got the federal government to issue basically a no objection letter on a right of way issue. So they do have right of way issues that they have to tackle as well. That also could create some delays.
So what it looked like stairs, almost like subway stairs. And instead of subways, you're getting into a tunnel.
Yeah, you could go down there was two stations. One of them was above ground, and that was basically a solar paneled station where you walk into the car, you drive down into the tunnel, and you go. The second one was actually a below ground. That one actually takes up more space above ground. The below ground one is like a normal subway station. It's just like a glass enclosed with an escalator. You go down the escalator. You're downstairs in a holding area, and you get in a car and you go. So that's exactly what it looks like. Sí. ¿Cómo no? ¿Cómo no? ¿Cuál parte? Sí. Sí, sí, sí. Sí, cómo no. Primero, siempre hay críticos de cualquier idea que uno tiene. Cuando uno es un líder, uno no para de ser líder simplemente porque alguien critica una idea. Yo nunca he tenido una idea grande en cual no han habido gente que lo han criticado. Muchas veces lo hacen por razones políticas y por muchas otras razones. Pero lo que yo les recomendaría a ellos es que toman el vuelo y vayan a Las Vegas para que ellos mismos lo pueden ver y hablar directamente con el gerente de la compañía que lo está haciendo en este momento. Así que es viable, se está construyendo, y para los que critican, por eso ellos no son aquí alcalde de Miami. El alcalde no puede vivir sobre la gente que le critican. Yo no puedo parar de hacer mi trabajo simplemente porque hay una campaña. Sí, es un vehículo controlado por sería controlado por la ciudad y con la compañía con un acuerdo. Y es un vehículo de Tesla. Es un vehículo como un SUV en cual 5 personas caben adentro del vehículo. Y lo bueno de eso es que no tiene que parar en cada parada, porque no necesariamente cuando tú tienes un vehículo grande hay alguien que va a tener que parar, así que se tiene que parar casi constantemente. Y por eso hace el tiempo que se demora de ir desde un lugar al otro mucho menor, por razones que no se tienen que normalmente las personas que están en un vehículo están yendo al mismo lugar.
Segunda pregunta, ¿cuándo comienza el Rental Protection Program? ¿Quién aplica? ¿Cómo se aplica? ¿Y a quién se beneficia?
Okay, let's go to rental assistance. Yeah, no worries. No, for sure. Ya. El programa de asistencia de la renta empieza el 29 de marzo a las 9 de la mañana. Pueden ir a visitar, que ahora mismo está disponible en la página de web, que es miamigov.com/ERA-program, PROGRAM, www.miamigov.com/ERA-PROGRAM, ERA-program. Para más información, puede cubrir hasta un año de arrendamiento, y es algo que el Departamento de Tesoreros nos dio a nosotros $14 millones para nosotros y 25 millones para las otras ciudades. Yeah, sure.
¿Quién puede aplicar? Necesito aplicación.
Los que pueden aplicar son personas que están afectados del COVID-19 financieramente en el último año. Yeah. De la ciudad de Miami, residentes de la ciudad de Miami. So it starts, the rental assistance program starts on March 29th at 9 a.m. It is up to $24,000 of rental assistance for a year, up to a year of rental assistance for struggling tenants. It's for City of Miami residents who have suffered economic harm during COVID. We received $14 million from the federal government, and the other cities received about from a $25 billion package, federally. So it's something that we think is needed right now to help our residents. That's separate and apart from the 139 million that we should be getting from the federal government soon, at least the first tranche, thanks to the White House's intervention with our office. You can access that by going online at www.miamigov.com/ERA-program. That's www.miamigov.com/ERA-program. Thank you, guys.
Quick one from me.
Sure.
If it's financed by them, are they going to be the sole owners? And then what are the next steps? Are you meeting with them again?
The next steps are we want to sort of digest what we saw and come up with our own plan, because remember, we have to come up with where the stations would be, or what are the neighborhoods that we want to connect. The beauty of it is it doesn't have to be straight lines. It can actually curve, and so you can sort of jog it. And obviously having conversations with them, it may be worth having multiple tunnel points. I'm not sure. So there's definitely going to be continued conversations. Maybe we'll give them sort of an idea of where we're at. But the other thing is we may want to procure it and say, hey, look, we're just going to do these stations, these neighborhoods, and let the private sector decide, who should do it, if there's anybody that can do it better or cheaper. They have absolutely no problem with that, by the way. They have no problem. They actually almost prefer that it be procured, because by piggybacking, we're sort of in a sweetheart deal, because they gave Las Vegas a sweetheart deal. And I'm not even sure that they would accept that, because they have a guaranteed maximum price, and they basically eat the losses if they go beyond that. So hopefully, we'll be in discussions with them to see what's the best way forward. They have their own way of charging the cars. Yeah, they have that taken care of. Back there, you're good. Everybody good? Thank you, guys. Have a good day.